Hello, everybody. We ask that we have a moment of silence, please. Welcome, everybody, to the Hartford Hiroshima-Nagasaki Remembrance, a shared call for nuclear weapon abolition back from the Brink. This is the 80th anniversary. I'm just going to, a few housekeeping things here. We've got bathrooms through there, if you need to use the bathrooms. This is the Hartford Quaker meeting house, just if anybody doesn't know. I attend. There's a couple members and attenders. If you have any questions, you can talk to us. I'm going to be your master of ceremony. My name's Ian Fay. I also go by Billy Sunday. I play some music. I'm going to be playing some guitar later. As I said, I attend the Quaker meeting, and we also do a thing called Hope Out Loud, which is a kind of an open mic. It's similar to this, so people can speak and they can do poetry and stuff like that. That's the last Friday every month. It's either out here or it's up in the meeting house. But with that being said, we will get started with Wayne Costa. Wayne is a professional engineer who became active with the Connecticut Coalition for Peace and Justice, CCPJ, and Hope Out Loud for over 20 years. One of his projects was the Iraq Memorial Wall that evolved from 2004 to 2008, which featured the names and faces of soldiers killed in Iraq and Afghanistan. The wall was a place where all could come together in a moment of shared loss, regardless of perspective on these wars, which could then facilitate dialogue. He has been a co-convener of the annual Hartford area Hiroshima and Nagasaki Remembrance for 20 years. Please welcome Wayne up.
Well, I think I'm going to begin with a little confession. Probably not the best way to start off this speech, but I will let you know. Many months ago, I was tasked with putting together a program on nuclear weapons and the resolutions that we're talking about today. I've had writer's block, and it wasn't just so much that I had writer's block, it's just that every time I would sit down to do something with this particular project, another abomination would happen. And so since last December, we've had, in my view, many close calls with nuclear weapons exchanges that have made me sit down and rethink what is going to happen next. And so I've had writer's block. And so last night, when I really sat down and said, well, I have to do this, I said, I still don't know what to do. So I asked ChatGPT to write me a speech. Okay, I've never done this before, but I asked ChatGPT, I need to write an 8-minute talk on nuclear weapons. It needs to talk about the risks and all this stuff. And it gave me a speech. It just spit it all out, and it was so good. Except it wasn't. It was, in fact, a warmongering piece that the rest of the world was nasty. The flashpoints where China was going to try to take over Taiwan, and that was going to be a flashpoint for nuclear weapons. Iran was going ahead in preparation for nuclear weapons. Israel had only alleged nuclear weapons. Russia was falling apart at the seams and chain of commands. So this is what ChatGPT, if you ever want to use ChatGPT for politics, be very careful. It's not going to give you the right answers. It's going to give you a CIA MI6 perspective. So I responded saying, please take these. Well, this is not what I expected. I expected to include this, and you type it all in. And it came back and said, oh, I think you're right. There's things I forgot or didn't include. And it wrote me another speech. And it, in fact, and in fact took in many of the points that I made and abbreviated. And this is the speech I'm going to give you today because it's pretty close to being about perfect for this time limitation. So apologies for the long introduction.
Thank you for your honesty.
But this has all the stuff that I wanted in there, effectively. So the title is Preventing Nuclear Catastrophe, and it's edited a little bit. A case for no first use. I'm here today to speak in support of House Resolution 317 and its near companion Senate Resolution 323, which calls for the United States to actively pursue a world free of nuclear weapons as a national security imperative. This is a call for responsibility and for survival. Right now, the world is closer to the brink of nuclear war than it has been at any point since the Cuban Missile Crisis. And it is not because the adversaries are being irrational, it's because the existing global nuclear order is being undermined in large part by our own actions. If we want, ChatGPT added that. If you want to lead the world towards safety, we must first stop lighting the fuse. The myth of deterrence and the reality of escalation. The doctrine of deterrence tells us that nuclear weapons keep the peace and that no one would dare start a war if the consequences are annihilation. But deterrence depends on rational actors, perfect informations, and systems that never fail. History tells us that none of these things can be guaranteed. Even worse, when the powerful nations adopt policies of strategic ambiguity, escalate military postures near nuclear-armed states, and assist in direct attacks on their nuclear infrastructure, we don't reduce risks, we invite disaster. Ukraine, a war approaching a nuclear threshold. Let us look at Ukraine, one of the most dangerous flashpoints today. Western nations, including the U.S., have provided intelligence, weapons, and targeting support to Ukraine. And this assistance has been used to strike deep into Russian territory, including attacks on Moscow itself. These strikes have not been limited to symbolic targets. Some have directly hit strategic bombers and early warning radars, assets that are integral to Russia's nuclear deterrent and command and control systems. At least 2 Russian radars were reportedly destroyed or damaged by Ukrainian drone strikes coordinated with Western intelligence. To be clear, striking another nuclear power's early warning systems is an existentialist red line. It puts the attacked nation on hair trigger alert. It risks convincing them that their second strike capability is being preemptively neutralized. We would never tolerate this if the roles were reversed. And while Russia notably maintains a no first use policy, the United States does not. That double standard is dangerous. Strategic ambiguity is strategic recklessness. The United States maintains a policy of strategic ambiguity, the refusal to state under what conditions it would use nuclear weapons. In practice, this means that we reserve the right to use nuclear weapons first, even in response to conventional attacks, cyber attacks, or even ambiguous threats. Strategic ambiguity was once sold as a strength. Today, it's a liability. The world is watching as the U.S. shifts more nuclear-capable assets into forward positions, including the B-61 Mod 12 gravity bombs, recently deployed to the UK. These are precision-guided, lower-yield nuclear bombs explicitly designed to be more usable. This isn't deterrence, it's preparation for nuclear warfighting. At the same time, former President Trump recently ordered 2 Ohio-class ballistic missile submarines into aggressive forward positions. Quiet signals to adversaries that Washington is ready to escalate. That may play well in Beltway strategy rooms, but it puts humanity on a knife's edge. Kaliningrad and General Donohue's reckless remarks. We cannot ignore the recent rhetoric from the U.S. military leaders either. General Chris Donohue reportedly suggested the idea of invading Kaliningrad, a Russian territory between Poland and Lithuania that is heavily defended by land forces and a missile systems umbrella. Whether this is official policy or speculation is beside the point. The fact that such ideas are being discussed at senior levels suggests a growing tolerance for contemplating preemptive or first strike scenarios against a nuclear state. This kind of posturing is exactly what makes war and nuclear war more likely. Iran, Israel, and the double standard. In the Middle East, we see another dangerous imbalance. Iran has long maintained a formal policy of not acquiring nuclear weapons. a policy reaffirmed multiple times. Meanwhile, Israel, which is widely understood to possess nuclear arsenals, continues to receive unqualified support from the U.S., even when it launches operations that escalate and risk broader wars. In June, Israel attempted a decapitation strike against Iran's leadership. This was not condemned by Washington. In fact, there's evidence to suggest tacit approval. This is not just about double standards, it's about a message it sends that nuclear-armed allies are given free rein while other nations are treated as threats for merely existing. That kind of global posture is not sustainable. It breeds instability, and instability in a nuclear world can be fatal. Why no first use matters now? Some will argue that to pursue a world free of nuclear weapons as a national security imperative would tie the president's hands. But the truth is, it only ties the president's hands from doing the one thing that he should not do, start a nuclear war. Pursuing a world free of nuclear weapons as a strategic security imperative policy would stabilize global nuclear relations, especially with other nuclear-armed states, reduce the chances of miscalculations in moments of crisis, demonstrate leadership, encouraging others to adopt similar policies, and perhaps most importantly, it would signal to the American people and the world that our nation does not believe in waging nuclear war, only in preventing it. Conclusion: responsibility, not rhetoric. The United States has the world's arguably the most powerful military, but power without restraint is provocation. If we truly want peace, if we want to protect the American people and the world, we must embrace nuclear responsibility, and that begins with rejecting doctrines of ambiguity and preemptive. It begins with House Resolution 317, Senate Resolution 323, the pursuit of a world free of nuclear weapons as a national security imperative. We cannot wait for a disaster to remind us of the stakes. Let us choose a rational path, and let us choose leadership. Let us choose life. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Wayne. ChatGPT. Yeah, all right. Version 2, the updated version, the educated version. All right. And so, up next, we have Carmen Wooster. She is a retired ordained congregational minister. She is the former Minister of Communication for the Connecticut Conference of the United Church of Christ. Her social justice advocacy began in protest of the Vietnam War. Please welcome Carmen.
Yay! How many grandparents? Thank you, Eric. How many grandparents are there in our midst? And of those, how many are great-grands? Any great-grands? No great-great-grands either? All right. Anyway, the point is children, our future, and we must consider their livelihood. And we're up against it because here it's 80 years. And where have we gotten? It seems like not far. And that's unbelievable. Of the 250,000 individuals that were murdered during the genocidal attack on Japan, 38,000 were children. And that we're not even talking about in utero. 38,000 children. The poster child for Hiroshima was a young girl. Her name Sasaki Sadoko. She was 2 when the bombs dropped. And her family was scattered. Some didn't make it at all. And for a while, it looked like her life was going to be normal. But as she grew, older, she started experiencing all sorts of physical ailments as a result of the radiation. And she ended up in the hospital in 1955 when she was 12 and was diagnosed with leukemia. And that's like a blood cancer, and it was tied to the radiation from the bombs. When she was hospitalized, she didn't have family really to come visit, but neighbors from the village that she was in came to see her. Her legs turned purple. She had a lot of swelling. She couldn't keep food down. And she couldn't make sense of this. She couldn't make sense of it. And who can make sense of this? War is senseless. When she was in the hospital, some of the other kids, I call a kid at 12 years of age, were there with her suffering, and they reminded her of a Japanese legend about making cranes, and they used a technique called origami, where they kept folding the papers and they folded them and made them cranes. And the thought was that if you make 1,000 cranes, then your question or your request to the universe would be answered. Well, she didn't quite make the 1,000 cranes, but her friends assisted to make the cranes, and she passed. The last thing she said was to her neighbors and friends, "Thank you." But she wanted to know that the world would one day be peaceful. That was one of her wishes. And here we are, 80 years later, and the world is not peaceful. What will we say to her if she was here? She's here in the spirit with us. But what will we say to her? What can we tell her to ease her querying mind about what was it all about? What was this destruction about? And why hasn't anything changed after 80 years? That's the question we have to pose to ourselves today. The challenge is still with us because the concept of war still continues, and it should be obsolete by now. There was a song long ago, and it started with, "War, what is it good for?"
Absolutely nothing.
There you go. Say it again.
Absolutely
Nothing. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. This girl, Sasaki Sadoko, that we're calling in now from the ether waves, is the poster child for the children's peace memorial that's there. And so you will see there the cranes that represented all the youth and children that were destroyed by this genocidal act of the United States. When the act happened, there was a blackout of news reports. The United States forbade any country to identify what had happened. And they also would take the survivors to checkpoints just to show the impact of the bombs, not to take them to get care. So some of the individuals started resenting the government coming and taking their people just to record how effective the bombs were, because their people were not getting any care. Another thing that happened that a lot of people don't know is that there was discrimination later in the community against those people who had survived the bomb. So if they wanted to marry someone, some people would say, oh, don't marry those people that were survivors of the bomb because the bloodline is going to be messed up. But this is what they speculated, and this is what happened. This is true. It is true. It's true that we still have freaking war. Why? My challenge to you is to use your creative power to stop this. That's why we're here today. It makes no sense. War is just an economic gain by a few to gain resources and take people out. We are one family under the Creator. We are one family. In each war that there's been, there's always somebody that says these people are not human. And they have other names which I won't go into, in which they justify the killings. It's not justifiable, people. And we should be better in our ideology by now. Regardless of what religious stance we take, what sociological stance we take, war, what is it good for?
Absolutely nothing.
Say it again.
Thank you very much, Carmen, for that heartfelt speech. Up next, we have Joe Wasserman, who has been a peace activist working to warn the world of the danger of nuclear weapons and has worked to oppose the Iraq and Vietnam wars. He has been a community organizer in Hartford for 30 years, working to make an impact on urban pollution problems related to environmental justice, elderly concerns, and neighborhood issues. At different times, he has worked with No Nukes, No War, Connecticut Coalition for Peace and Justice, North Hartford Seniors in Action, Connecticut Family Advisory Council, and the Capital Region Conference of Churches. He currently helps to organize the Hartford area annual call to abolish nuclear weapons on the anniversary of the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Please welcome Joe Wasserman.
Thank you. Thank you. First of all, you're talking to the microphone. I'm talking to the microphone.
Yeah,
Of course.
good idea.
Do people hear me?
Don't pull the microphone. Talk into the microphone.
Do people hear me?
No. Two fingers away from the
There you go, Joe. Closer?
Yep, a little closer.
Do you hear me?
There you go.
Okay. First of all, thank you to all those who took the time to write a handwritten letter to our U.S. senators in support of our Senate resolution on nuclear weapons that Wayne just described. If you have not done so, please take the time to write your letter before the end of the event tonight. We're going to hand deliver those letters to the congressional offices. Jill Friedman, thank you, Jill Friedman, put together a poster for Representative Hayes. If you are in her district, New Britain, Simsbury, Avon, and West, please sign the poster in the back here. We're going to deliver that poster to Representative Johanna Hayes' office to get her to follow the leadership of John Larson and Rosa DeLaura, who have co-sponsored the House resolution on nuclear weapons. I think we could all agree that the danger of nuclear war is growing. The recent escalation of tensions between the U.S. and Russia with the movement of nuclear submarines towards Russia is a wake-up call. We need to act now. The world is has come too close too many times, and there are too many dangerous flashpoints in the world today that can spin out of control. Both HRES 317 and SRES 323 address the danger we are facing. The twin resolutions call on the U.S. to take a leadership role in working with other nuclear weapon armed nations to reduce the threat of nuclear war. They call for taking nuclear missiles off of hair trigger alert, cutting the funding for modernization of nuclear weapons, and taking away sole presidential authority over the launching of nuclear weapons. The resolutions also commit the U.S. to a no first strike use of nuclear weapon policy. There are provisions for moving jobs from war industry to peacetime investment, compensating the victims of nuclear weapon testing, and opposing resumptions of explosive nuclear weapon testing that the Trump administration has been talking about. My hope is that we can deliver these letters and poster as a group, as we have done so in the past, to the congressional offices. So my question to you is, who would be willing to help deliver the letters either to the offices of Senator Murphy or Senator Blumenthal, or to the Waterbury office of Representative Hayes? Do I have a show of hands? Great, fantastic. Okay, so what I'm going to do is have you sign the sheet. If you think you might be able to make it, we'll work out a time that's best for everybody. Yeah. For the senator, yes. Will you yeah, okay. I would ask you to write legibly, please, and consider, and print religiously on the sheet so we can get back to you. Please join us for our mission. Humanity's at stake. The survival of humanity is at stake. Thank you. Does anybody want to start?
Thank you, Joe. Always a stalwart of this organization.
All right. Why don't we use the wireless Well, in this hardware, it's got to be facing up, and it's got to be facing down.
Sounds good to me. All right.
Is that good?
Yeah. Check. Test.
Weapons on.
Alrighty, everybody. You're now witnessing Billy Sunday. So here it is. I'm just gonna do a couple songs for you guys. Yes, they rob I, sold I to the merchant ship. Minutes after they took I from the bottomless pit. But my hand was made strong by the hand of the Almighty. We forward in this generation triumphantly. Won't you help me sing? 'Cause all that I ever had was a redemption song. Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves will free our minds. Have no fear for atomic energy. None of them will stop the time. How long will they kill our prophets? While we stand aside and look. Well, they they say that it's just a part of it. Got to fulfill the book. Won't you help me sing? Because all that I ever had was a redemption song. Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves will free our minds. Have no fear for atomic energy, and none of them will stop the time. How long will they kill our prophets while we stand aside and look? They say that it's just a part of it, but we've got to fulfill the book. Won't you help me sing? Because all that I ever had was a redemption song, a song of freedom, a song of freedom.
Bob Marley in the house.
Little Bob Marley there. We'll go from one Bob to the next. How many roads must a man walk down before you can call him man? How many seas will the white dove sail before she can sleep in the sand? And how many times will the cannonballs fly before they are forever banned? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. And how many years will that mountain exist before it is washed to the sea? And how many years can some people exist before they're allowed to be free? How many times can a man turn his head, pretending he just doesn't see? The answer, my friend, well, it's blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the How many times can a man look up before he can see the sky? How many ears does one man before he can hear people cry? Yes, and how many deaths will it take till he knows that too many people have died? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. Thank you. Now I'll do a little original song that I wrote. Here you go. It's called Taken Heaven by Force. they're trying to take heaven by force. Guns and tanks and blood, full of doubt and remorse. Only if they could. Can't hold that course, 'cause you can't take heaven by force. But now it's east versus west. Time to find out who's the best. But there's something in us all that's same. I feel it coming down in the summer's rain. I can't hold that course, can't take heaven by force. Ever since the beginning, we're still out here looking for a kill. Some walls, they fall by fire, and others only from a door that never tires. You can't hold that course, 'cause you can't take heaven by force. Now the time is at hand, of death and destruction rule our land. A new day will dawn for those who stand strong. You can't hold that course, 'cause you can't take heaven by force. No, it ain't so hard, but the lies and darkness are heard. You keep your thoughts true, and you'll find that light that's been following you. You can't hold that course, you can't take heaven by force. Thank you very much. Up next.
No, they're all turned off.
Okay.
Which one you at?
Whatever one you want, yeah.
This one?
And back to being Ian.
I'm a man of many hats. Okay, thank you everybody. And up next we have Stephen Lewis. Steve is an avid environmentalist who gained his appreciation for nature and conservation as a Boy Scout and has carried that passion into adulthood. As a scouting leader, he was awarded a significant conservation award for his work on monarch butterfly conservation. Along the way, he also became a Leave No Trace master educator and teaches outdoor ethics which are rooted in Aldo Leopold's land ethic. In addition to his scouting involvement, Steve is a Connecticut Audubon master naturalist who loves birding and teaches natural history and climate change in their Master Naturalist program in multiple Connecticut Audubon locations. Steve worked in the Connecticut General Assembly for over a decade and brings his policy and legislative process experience to the Connecticut Sierra Club Legislative Committee. Steve helped South Windsor host its first Drive Electric Week and worked with the town on model EV charger zoning regulations. His work with the town on behalf of the Sierra Club helped the town earn sustainable CT Silver status. Please welcome Stephen.
Check, check. Can you hear me? Coming through? Thank you for having me tonight. I appreciate it. It's good to see you all. And, you know, before I get into my prepared remarks, I want to say I worked in the General Assembly on the Public Health Committee staff for 13 years. Didn't think I would do that when I got out of college, but that's where I ended up. And the one lesson I took away from working in politics in the legislature is that progress is really, really difficult, but inevitably, if enough people work on it together, they can make something happen. They can make something good happen. And I saw it happen over and over. You know, if you introduce a bill in its first year, you know, the likelihood is it's not going to go anywhere. And you might have to keep going back for further bites at that apple. But eventually, I've seen the world change in the time I was there. So for example, when I started working there, everybody in the office smoked cigarettes. It didn't matter where they sat in the office, they were at their desk. Every restaurant, every bar, people were smoking. And we took up bills to address the secondhand smoke risk and the problem of cigarette smoking. And guess what? The world changed. And we thought it wasn't going to be possible because of the really strong lobby for the tobacco industry. They had a ton of money, and they were a force to be reckoned with. Now, you can go back to Rachel Carson and her battle against the chemical companies, which led to the EPA being formed, and you look at there are ospreys now flying around and bald eagles on the Connecticut River. So hope is a real thing when people work together on shared values, shared interests. And I put to you right now, before my remarks, that we together, along with others that we get involved in this issue, can make progress. And seems impossible right now, but trust me, over time the world changes. Sometimes for the best, sometimes not, as we all know, right? So I want to talk tonight about the 3 existential threats to life on Earth. Through evolutionary time, over the eons and ages, Homo sapien brains and culture came to dominate the Earth. Up until that time, the Earth had been self-regulating and, at times, stable environment on which life has come to thrive and interact in self-supporting ecosystems, where every living thing has a role and a function that contributes to the greater biotic community. Humans began to flourish in what we now call the Holocene, when climate stability created what is referred to as the Goldilocks environment. Not too hot, not too cold, just right. But the Earth has been throughout time a place of violent upheaval, with 5 great extinction events recorded in history that not only changed the direction of life on the planet, but also nearly came to an end, most famously known as the asteroid that killed off the age of the dinosaurs. And those 5 major extinctions go all the way back almost 500 million years. Every about 100 million years, it seemed, there was another massive great extinction event, leading to the die-off of 75, 85, 95% of all living things on the planet. And somehow the planet revived and life came back. The dinosaurs didn't come back. And in fact, many times over those different mass extinctions, the species that were there before didn't come back the next time. And you know, it took 10 million years in almost every case for life to come back at the level of flourishing that had existed before those mass extinction events. So, needless to say, nuclear war could cause similar catastrophic consequences. Scientists believe, like in other mass extinctions, some form of life would survive, but humans and many other species may not likely do, to the loss of food supplies, whether it's agriculture or the oceans being completely destroyed by a nuclear event. Elizabeth Kolbert, in her Pulitzer Prize-winning book, The Sixth Extinction from 2015, argues that humans are now causing the sixth extinction. Between biodiversity loss and climate change, it's primarily driven by human activities. These include habitat destruction and fragmentation due to urbanization, deforestation, and agriculture, which reduces available space for species. Additionally, climate change, fueled by fossil fuel consumption, is altering habitats and creating conditions that many species cannot adapt to. Overexploitation of resources like overfishing and the introduction of invasive species contribute to that crisis. Now, the Pulitzer Prize-winning father of biodiversity, E.O. Wilson, has said this about climate change. It's the most urgent global problem short of the destruction of the Earth by a planet-sized asteroid. If nothing is done about climate change, you can forget about biodiversity. You can forget about millions of species, thus about the living part of nature, about the stabilizing power of ecosystems, and not least about an autonomously secure future for the human species. And that was from the foreword of Biodiversity and Climate Change, Transforming the Biosphere. E.O. Wilson is a hero of mine just because of his view of life on Earth and the importance of biodiversity. He has said, quote, "If all mankind were to disappear, the world would regenerate back to the rich state of equilibrium that existed 10,000 years ago. If insects were to vanish, the environment would collapse into chaos." This quote is, "Nature is the birthright of everyone on Earth. The millions of species we have allowed to survive are our phylogenetic kin. Their long-term history is our long-term history. Despite all our fantasies and pretensions, we always have been and will be a biological species tied to this particular biological world." And lastly, he said, "I will argue that every scrap of biological diversity is priceless, to be learned and cherished and never to be surrendered without struggle." And I'm going to say, this is me speaking, not E.O. Wilson, that we need to protect our climate health and our biodiversity just like we need to prevent nuclear conflagration. In fact, they are the same aims: to retain life and our Goldilocks ecosystem and the biodiversity we inherited. But can humans solve these three existential threats? I believe we can. We have no choice but to work together with people of goodwill who will overcome division and disinformation to do the right thing. Martin Luther King said, "The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice." I believe it also bends towards assuring more than survival. It bends towards protecting the world and life in its many amazing forms. Let's do our part in this portion of the arc of the moral universe about preventing nuclear war, stopping climate change, and protecting biodiversity. We don't have 10 million years to replace it. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Also want to mention that we are being streamed live by the West Hartford Community Interactive folks over here. So thank you guys for that. And up next we have Mary Lou Saunders of the Green Party, born in New Britain. She's run for candidate several times. Please welcome her to the stage.
Sorry. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
No, because it's not turned
No.
on.
Get closer to the mic.
It's not turned on.
Oh, well, that would help.
Can we get a light turned
Something's
on?
on. You can hear through the mic.
Okay. All right. As I was introduced, my name is Mary Lou Sanders from New Britain, currently living in Hartford for the past 30 years. And yes, I have run for office 5 times, but not on the Democratic or the Republican ticket. I'm with the Green Party now since 2016. And I've run for Congress, I've run for State Senate, and I've run for Hartford City Council. So to give people a third option, you know, it's like we need to have probably 4 or 5 options, and we need everybody working for ranked choice voting. That's what a real democracy would consist of. So I was gonna talk a little bit about the Green Party's position on the anniversary of the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. But as many of you are probably familiar with the Green Party's platform, it is about reducing the military budget, working for diplomacy, working towards disarmament of nuclear weapons and making sure that people have housing, health care, education, and everything else that they need, like some other countries provide for their citizens. So I'm not going to read their long statement. Instead, I found something different. Usually I read a poem from a book called God's Tears, which I encourage any of you to look for. There's a whole collection of poems on the Nagasaki and Hiroshima bombings. So for a few years I read from that book. But today I found something different, looking for poems related to Hiroshima. And I found that there was, I'm reading from my phone, so please bear with me. A young poet living in Hiroshima with her dad in the 90s. She was 7 years old. He was an American scientist, Earl Reynolds, and he was assigned there to study the effects of the Hiroshima bombing and the Nagasaki bombing to study the effects on the children's growth for the subsequent generations. For 3 decades they worked there. And the daughter, Barbara, established a friendship center whose purpose was to offer assistance to victims of the bombing. And she was honored with the citizenship of Hiroshima. In 1990, the mother and daughter planned to fly back to Japan for the 45th anniversary, but Barbara Reynolds died unexpectedly at the age of 74 before she could make the trip, and her children attended the ceremony without her. So young Jessica wrote this poem, and that's what I'm going to share with you. And it's called Hiroshima, August 6th, 1990, in memory of my mother. Once more upon these graves without a corpse, where grass now grows and folding chairs in rows, we sit respectfully at the break of day and try to fan the flames away. Only cicadas scream and clouds of smoke rise as our foes, housewives, and children's rose. Rising too, memories threaten to choke such leveled dreams as they evoke. Mom did not burn with them. No, she did not burn with them, but she was here, her ghost with theirs. This cemetery shares, and all their horror, thirst, and agony with my new grief explodes in me. Jessica Reynolds. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Lou. Next, we've got Matthew Festa from the UN Association of Connecticut.
Yep. Don't
I'll
even.
let you do it.
Please don't do that.
All right. All right.
It should be about good. Let me turn it on.
No worries. All right. Well, good evening, everyone. It is great to be here. My name is Matthew Festa. I serve as the National Council Representative with the United Nations Association based in Washington, D.C. Our values are to promote a strong U.S.-UN relationship that upholds the values of peace, security, and safety. Values that demand we prevent nuclear weapons from ever being used again. Recently, I had the privilege to travel to Hiroshima. And there I met 2 truly remarkable individuals. The first was a gentleman who survived the atomic bombing in utero. His mother carried him through a city reduced to rubble, desperately searching for family members who had vanished in the chaos. Days turned into weeks as she scoured the ruins. Those she found were gravely ill from radiation exposure, and many later indeed passed away. He grew up not only with the knowledge of that day, but with the lingering grief of a family that would never be whole again. The second person I met was a woman who was just a baby when the bomb fell, too young to understand, but not too young to be shaped by it. She grew up in the shadow of that morning, surrounded by loss, illness,
and the silent weight of knowing that her survival did come at a cost. Their stories are not distant history, but are living testimony of the human cost of nuclear weapons. A cost measured not just in the lives lost in that moment, but in the decades of suffering that follows. You know, we often speak about nuclear weapons in these strategic terms like deterrence, arsenals, treaties, but those really can obscure the reality. Deterrence is only meaningful if the use of those weapons remains unthinkable. The survivors of Hiroshima and Nagasaki remind us exactly what that use looks like: the destruction, the loss, and the pain that echoes for generations. As long as these weapons exist, deterrence must hold. They must remain weapons that should never, under any circumstance, be used again. In essence, this is why your presence here tonight matters. By gathering, listening, and lending your voice, you all strengthen that cause. You help to carry forward the messages of the survivors, and you remind the world that there are people who will stand up, pay attention, and work to ensure history's worst mistakes are never repeated. So I thank you all for being here and for being a part of that commitment that will truly save the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. And up next, we have a poet who is well known around here. He's always coming to the Hope Out Loud poetry slam. Please welcome Yanni Sembrakis.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Yes? Yeah. Tonight I need to dedicate this to Carmen because she inspired me to do this. Usually I write poetry titled word paintings, they're sentences. However, Carmen asked me if I can write a little bit something about pacifism and war. Here goes. God did not give us the bomb to destroy ourselves, but the choice to do so. There is a War Crimes Commission. The German scientist Werner von Braun was picked up by NASA. How does the United Nations deal with nuclear war? Does the president have the sole power to deploy a nuclear warhead? Joseph Stalin said that the Soviet Union can survive a nuclear war. There is a photograph of Stalin, Roosevelt, and Churchill deciding the fate of post-World War II Germany. We have become a nation of Jews, Carl Sagan. Atomic bombs are small. Is money an issue in the development of nuclear weapons? If you kill all the people, there will be no people left to kill. World War IV will be fought with sticks, Albert Einstein. Martin Luther King, Nelson Mandela, and Mahatma Gandhi took responsibility for their actions. You cannot hug your children with nuclear arms. A nuclear war cannot be won, Reagan Gorbachev. One said he was a great warrior. The other said war does not make one great, Star Wars. The Star Wars initiative was a defensive proposition. Mikhail Gorbachev won the Nobel Peace Prize for peace. Albert Einstein declined the presidency of Israel. In one situation, nuclear war was avoided by luck, a scientist named Ira Welfan. Thank you.
Thank you, Yanni. And we have up next a man who needs no introduction. Please welcome Eric Stam.
Well, on behalf of the Hartford Quakers and Hope Out Loud, I'd like to welcome everybody here. This is the advertisement. You're in the backyard of a Hartford Quaker meeting. And if you've ever been curious about Quakers or looking for spiritual expression in a community. We meet for meeting for worship every Sunday at 10. I recommend you use the front door though. I'm here in part because I'm going to lead us in a memorial minute of silence, and it's dangerous when Quakers do that because often our moments of silence last 10 or 15 minutes. I'll be brief. Too often, activists on the left really don't get credit for their work. We don't really hear about many of the wonderful people who worked for peace in the past. They disappear, so it's really incumbent on us to remember people. And many years ago at the Hiroshima event, we started a tradition of remembering the peace activists in our own community who died in the past year. For people who knew her, Barbara Sarmento, also known as Babs Reed, Dennis Sullivan, and Al Benford. Those last two were two of the 5 people who maintained the Friday Vigil that Hartford Catholic Workers started in 1995 to provide opportunities for public nonviolent witness. And I would encourage people to consider joining us every Friday at 11:30 in front of the Federal Building, because we're carrying on that tradition. But I'd like to take a moment, I'd like to ask people, are there other people we'd like to remember who have died in the past year? Or, like David Brown, who have been integral to this event and so many others here in Hartford?
Lynn Johnson.
Yes.
Lynn Johnson. God bless her.
For environment.
Mm-hmm.
And
Who's that?
Rapkin.
Ann Rapkin. Okay, let's take a moment of silence and remember them.
Jerry Martin.
Who's that?
Yeah, Amy's mom. I went to her funeral this morning.
Gary Martin.
In Middletown.
I'm a big fan of poetry. It's one of the reasons I love doing the open mic on Friday, last Friday of the month, here in Quaker Meeting. We've been doing that for a long time now. So I'm going to read a very brief. There's a whole school of poetry called atomic bomb poetry. I don't know if people realize that. It's largely comes out of Japan and really started being written by the Habakushka, the survivors of the atomic bombings. So I recommend you Google it. They're very powerful. I'm going to read a very short poem. God responded with tears. The plane flew over Hiroshima and dropped the bomb after the all-clear warning had sounded. The bomb dropped far slower than the speed of light. It dropped at the speed of bombs. From the ground, it was a tiny silver spark that separated from the silver plane. After 43 seconds, the slow-falling bomb exploded into mass at the speed of light squared. Einstein called it energy. Everything lit up. For a split second, people could see their own bones. The pilot always believed he'd done the right thing. The president, too, never wavered from his belief. He thanked God for the bomb. Others did, too. God responded with tears that fell far slower. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Eric. Next, we're going to have Jill Friedman lead us in a song. Jill She's a lifelong activist. She's been involved in fighting for peace and justice, marching on picket lines, and teaching through music and art. She has taught special ed for 44 years in Bloomfield and Hartford. She travels extensively, works on cultural exchanges, and was on the steering committee for 8 years for People's Music Network. Songs of Freedom and Struggle. She has recorded with Pete Seeger, Bread and Roses, and Cool Runnings, just to name a few. Thank you, Jill.
Can you see me over this one? One, two, one, two, one, two. I know, but he's got to be the one to do it. 1, 2, 1, 2. Can you hear me okay? Awesome. I want to first of all thank the people that came who didn't know about this until Wednesday when we were in front of the old State House passing out flyers, and they actually stopped and listened and asked questions, and just all of you for being here. This is certainly a community effort, and Eric and Joe and all the folks that helped set up, and Mary and just everybody. I really have been involved in Hope Out Loud for a lot of years, but I missed a lot of years in between. But I remember when David Brown wrote this song. Yep. Did you already say that? Oh, I will say it. The words are on the back. There is one verse that I didn't have originally, so I'm going to skip over that verse because I've never actually played this. So it's a new song to me the first time I'm performing it. Woo. When they wave the flag, when they bang the drum, you better hope out loud that peace will come. If you just sit silently and wait, well, before you know it, it's gonna be too late. You gotta hope out loud. You gotta raise your voice. You gotta let people know they have a choice. You gotta hope out loud. You gotta let them know that hate is not the way to go. Now the old ones and the young ones to war. You know I've seen it all before. Well, it won't work now, and it didn't work back then. And the deadly cycle begins again. You gotta what? Oh, out loud, make it plan, make it plain. There'll be no more killing in my name. You gotta hope out loud, so loud they hear. Don't give in to apathy and fear. You gotta hope out Thank you. You guys did a great job.
Well, that's all, folks. That is the end of the program, but there's a tradition in Japan that really started around Hiroshima observances of lighting candles. And back in the day, we actually floated candle boats on the Connecticut River. Unfortunately, American Friends Service Committee closed their Connecticut office and we lost the insurance coverage that was needed, and all of a sudden there's a fairly significant price tag to this event. So we've started making a peace sign. It's over on the hill here, candlelit peace sign. We actually got a little bit lazy, and you'll find out they are electric candles. Well, ask Karen someday what it was like to light 150 candles in paper cups. But so I'm going to encourage people to grab a candle. Wayne has them, and place them. There's yellow rope over there that's laid out, a peace sign, and if we place them there, pretty soon there will be a candlelit peace sign. So on behalf of Back from the Brink, Connecticut, Hope Out Loud, and the Hartford Quakers, UN Association of Connecticut, thank you all for coming, and let's hope we don't need to do this again next year.
Quite some caution. Sure. No, I'm
Flies in the sugar bowl, shoot, shoot, shoot. Flies in the sugar bowl, shoot, shoot, shoot. Flies in the sugar bowl, shoot, shoot, shoot. Skip to my loo, my darling. Hey, hey, hey. Hey, skip to my loo, my darling. Here's another nice little song you can help me on. All you have to do is sing a little kind of a counter melody. Sing ho de inkdom, you do it over and over. Sing ho de inkdom, do it over and over. Soon as we all cook sweet potatoes, sweet potatoes, sweet potatoes. Soon as we all cook sweet potatoes, eat 'em right straight up. Soon as supper's at Mommy hollers, Mommy hollers, Mommy hollers. Soon as supper's at Mommy hollers, got to go to bed. Soon as we touch our head to the pillow, to the pillow, to the pillow. Soon as we touch our head to the pillow, go to sleep right smart. Soon's the rooster crow in the morning, in the morning, in the morning. Soon's the rooster crow in the morning, got to wake right up. Soon's the school bus stops on the highway, on the highway, on the highway. Soon's the school bus stops on the highway, got to go to school. Soon's the school bell rings in the afternoon, in the afternoon, in the afternoon. Soon's the school bell rings in the afternoon, then we go right home. Soon as we all cook sweet potatoes, sweet potatoes, sweet potatoes. Soon as we all cook sweet potatoes, eat 'em right straight up. Since you've learned how to sing in harmony, see if you can sing some nice harmony on this.